Welcome to Team Black's Field Tech Basics. I'm Chris Webster with Team Black. Let's get started. All right, so welcome to Team Black. We're going to have a quick course overview, and then we're going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into the class. We're going to talk about gear, lodging, jobs, and education. First, a little bit about myself. I've got a Master of Science degree. I'm a registered professional archaeologist. I was in the U.S. Navy from 1993 to 1997. I have a BA in anthropology from the University of North Dakota in 2005. I did a field school at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania in 2005. I was a field technician from 2005 to about 2009, mostly East Coast. I got my MS in Archaeological Resource Management from the University of Georgia in 2010. I was a field tech, crew chief, project manager, all the things from 2010 to about 2012. And then I started my own company, DigTech LLC, in 2012. I started the Archaeology Podcast Network in 2014, and I started PCS in 2015, which became Team Black 2 years later. And since 2018, actually November 2018, I have been working with WildNote to advance digital archaeological site recording. Okay, so let's talk about gear. All the things you need in the field to succeed, and that's what we're going to talk about. So when deciding what you're going to do, you need to first ask yourself, are you doing survey or are you doing excavation? And then what that actually means. When you're doing survey, look at the type of survey you're doing. It could be pedestrian survey, it could be shovel testing, it could be something else. You just need to figure that out. The region you're working in is going to be important. Are you working somewhere with a lot of briars, somewhere with open ground, somewhere with rattlesnakes, somewhere with really cold weather, wind, things like that. And of course, weather is dependent on the region, and the type of survey you do in that region with that kind of weather will determine what you're going to use and what you're going to need. So some of the things you need on a common survey is a backpack. I always try to find one with lots of pockets on the outside, and ideally some pockets on the inside too, because those big open day packs, everything just gets lost in there and it gets dirty, and I found that they're no good. You notice one like this has things you can clip on the outside. That's always nice to have. I mean, don't get too jingly out there, but have a backpack that is sturdy, that is comfortable. This one doesn't have a waist strap, but I would make sure it has a waist strap because that keeps the weight off your shoulders and kind of off your lower back, and just puts it on your hips where you're stronger. So look for that. Extra water. You should always have extra water, even if you don't think you're going to need it. Most camelbacks or water systems will be 3 liters. And I always carry an extra 2 liter or an extra 3 liter with me that I could either fill that with or just unplug it and plug a new one in. And sometimes I don't use it. Sometimes I do. But if you don't have it, when you do need it, then you'll be sad that you didn't have it. You, of course, need a hat, something that can flex and bend under getting caught on branches and trees and things like that, unless you're out in the desert and you don't have to worry about that stuff. But I've been out in the desert and had to worry about things like juniper trees and other things. This particular type of hat is called a tilly hat. I love mine, and it's got a little flap that actually tucks up inside the hat that you can see there, but it comes down for sun protection on your neck when you need it. Boots. So there are a couple things I spend as much money as I can on. And one of those is boots. If you don't have good boots, then you're going to be sad in the field. Not only that, but you're going to destroy your feet. And your feet are the one thing that is going to keep you doing this job. Your feet, your knees, it's all tied to your boots, okay? If you've got a really crappy pair of boots or something that's just making you sore or not walk right, then that's going to have lasting impacts for probably the rest of your life, depending on how long you wear them. So spend some good money on some good boots. Long sleeve shirts. So for the longest time, I wore short sleeve shirts in the field, and I just lathered up the sunscreen. Well, nowadays, if you buy the right shirts, you buy thin shirts that actually have their own SPF protection, and it should be labeled if they do, then you'll protect your arms. You won't have to put on that sunscreen, which can be mildly toxic after a really long period of time, years and years and years of putting that on. And it's really kind of a pain because most people will put it on in the morning and then maybe reapply at lunch, but you really should reapply every hour or two. And the less amount of surface area you have to do that, the more likely you're not going to get skin cancer. Gloves. This is one other place where I spend a ton of money. So if you're doing any sort of screening or shovel testing or where you're directly handling things that you don't maybe want to touch, buy a good pair of gloves. The mechanics gloves are great because they have kind of a shock absorbing system internally to them. So if you're doing a lot of hard pounding with a shovel or shovel testing or something like that, then a good set of mechanic gloves is going to be pretty great. There's other brands, of course, but just don't buy those $2 cotton gloves or the really cheap multi-packs of rawhide kind of gloves. I see people wearing those. I'm like, what are you doing? Spend some good money on gloves, maybe drink a little less beer that week and focus on your hands. More focusing on your hands, I only started wearing these a few years ago when I saw a friend having them on. And again, it cuts down on the sunscreen. Actually keeps you cooler to wear these sun gloves. And they're not very expensive. I think you can get them for $20 to $30. And they last a long time, a lot longer than the mechanics gloves. If you're using those mechanics gloves on a screen a lot, they'll last a couple months and then they're done. But these will last a whole season or more. Sunglasses, try to find something that is going to last, that is going to take a beating, preferably not metal frames because those actually just don't last as long and they get hot on the edges. These plastic framed ones, actually these from Shady Rays, I have these. In fact, I have them right here and they're pretty great. I love these sunglasses. They also have a lifetime guarantee on them. So if you lose them or break them or something like that, then they have ways to replace those. Also focus on getting, if you're out in the sun all the time, which if you're an archaeologist, you probably are, I always focus on getting UV protected ones because over time your eyes will take a pounding on that, especially if you're working at any higher elevations. There's more UV radiation coming in the less amount of atmosphere, the higher you go up. So you'll damage your eyes even quicker. A compass. Everybody needs a compass. Well, kind of. I mean, you can get away with other types of compasses these days, but you need something to tell you what direction you're going. Out here in the West, we typically use compasses less and less on survey because we're following a UTM coordinate based on our GPS. So we typically only pull out the compass when you have to take a bearing on a feature or something like that, but you still need a compass. So having something that's a sighting compass that you can hold out, and on this particular one, you can see the mirror will face down towards the reading. So you read off the mirror, but you can look under the mirror or over the top of the mirror to sight in on the object that you're actually looking at. And this particular compass has some measurements and things for laying the compass on a map. That's why they're clear. A normal map compass is just the bottom part, but this is a map compass with a sighting mirror as well. So take a look and maybe find one that has 1 to 2 degree increments, not 5 degree increments, because you need that higher accuracy. Also find one that allows you to adjust the declination, because unless you're working on that line from about Michigan down to South Carolina, which is 0 degrees declination, and that's actually changing a little bit, so I might be off on that, but you need to account for the magnetic variation between magnetic north and true north, and the way to do that is to adjust the backside of your compass. And if you're working out in the West especially, they will tell you the magnetic declination is 13 or 14 degrees or 25 degrees or something like that. And you need to make those corrections in your compass so you can be on the right heading, because usually we're working true north, not magnetic north. And you need to have that difference set in. Okay, extra batteries. Everybody's got electronics these days, even if it's just your smartphone and you don't need anything else. I have a couple of these 30,000 milliamp 0-limit batteries. I would say that's a bit overkill, but I use them for lots of different things. So you probably only need like a small 2,000 to 3,000 milliamp battery, enough to get you through the end of the day, unless you're camping and you want to do that several days in a row before you can get back to power, or maybe in a week in a row, then maybe buy one of these big ones. But honestly, you just need something small enough to get you over the hump at the end of the day. Because most of the time, if you're using your device consistently, maybe you're using your phone to sight record on WildNote, maybe you're using your phone for safety or something else, calling back to the office, I don't know what. Maybe you're using it as a compass, who knows? But you're doing something on it, and you want to be able to do that for the whole day. So it's going to suck that battery down, especially if it's warmer out, and you want to be able to last through the day. So have at least a 2,000 to 3,000 milliamp battery, and preferably something that has covered ports like these, so it doesn't get moisture in it or sand or something like that, and or just put it in a bag or some sort of protective case when you're using it. I would also suggest, and I don't have that on here, whatever cord you need to plug into this to get into your device, buy a better one. If you're, say, on iPhone or Android, that cord that comes with, it's going to be trash, absolute trash, and probably not long enough. So buy one that's longer so you can keep the battery in your backpack, bring it out towards you, and have that. I use the cords from Nomad. They're really great. They're a little more expensive, but I've got one that I've had for, I don't know, 4 years now. So check those out. All right. So vehicle, you're going to need a car as a field tech or a truck. You need a plan for lots of travel. If you're going to be going job to job to job, especially early in your career, you're going to be on the road a lot. And if you can't get to the work, then you can't do the work. So make sure you've got something that's reliable, and save money for repairs. So when that thing breaks down, you need a new set of tires, you need a new transmission. I mean, I would say have at least $3,000 in the bank. That's just for your vehicle. And that way, if your vehicle is beyond repair, if you got to spend more than that, then just junk the vehicle and use that $3,000 for a down payment on a new one, if you can afford it, or a new used vehicle. When you are looking for vehicles, find something that gets great gas mileage, because you're going to pour a lot of money into that gas. So if you're doing things right, you might be able to actually deduct the mileage from your taxes at the end of the year, but you have to keep a log, and you have to make sure you track every single mile that you put on that car, and make sure that when that's turned in, you can verify all those miles. Now, you have to reach certain deductions and things like that. So definitely check with an accountant or a tax professional before you take my word as the gospel on that. Also look at storage space. So you don't necessarily need a truck to get a lot of storage space. This is actually my 2012 Prius that we don't have anymore. And most Toyota vehicles, the seats lay flat when they go down. And I put down a rubber mat in the back. Actually, I just turned over the one that was in there. And I was able to put screens, shovels, all kinds of stuff in the back of this Prius because there's an amazing amount of room in there. So when you're looking at a new vehicle, just look at the amount of storage space. If you are getting a car like this, I would say a hatchback is going to have more space than something with a trunk that opens. Even if the seats go down, you're going to find that that's problematic. So keep in mind, like I said, you don't need to necessarily get a truck. I mean, this car got over 50 miles to the gallon because it was essentially a hybrid, and I was able to do lots of stuff with it before I got my Toyota Tacoma. Look for comfort and amenities in your car. You're going to spend a lot of time in it. You might be sleeping in it. Look for stuff like a Bluetooth radio. I don't spend an extra few $1,000s on that package if you don't need it, because for like $600, you can put a great radio in there aftermarket and have, really nice thing. I mean, you can get cheaper ones, but I'm just saying, to replace the one they want to charge you $2,000 for, you can get a great one aftermarket and just replace the one that comes with it. So keep that in mind. Look for stuff like, make sure it has air conditioning, all those things. That's just quality of life stuff that's going to get you in the end if you don't do it. Again, as I said, have a parts and maintenance fund. This car is got to get you to work. It's got to get you there. It's got to get you across the country in a moment's notice. And if you don't have it, then you're stuck. All right, so other things you might need, a computer or tablet. People are, everything's digital these days. And I'm actually going out as tech support on a project here really soon. And the company sent out an email saying, hey, do you want to use your own device or do you want to use a company device? I prefer to use my own device. I do all my recording on an iPhone 10 here, but you can do it on a tablet and other things. And it's just really handy to have your own. Even if you don't use it for work, you can use it for other stuff. I would say if you don't do a lot of serious things with your computer, and maybe you're just reading, surfing the internet, watching Netflix, stuff like that, then just get a tablet. It takes up less space. You don't have to worry about storing it. It's a lot more rugged than a computer is, just naturally, because it doesn't have a lot of parts to fail and dirt to get in. So think about that and bring it with you. Simple clothing. What I mean by that is clothing that can serve multiple purposes. So clothing you can wear at work, but maybe it's also nice enough you can just clean it and you can wear it out. You don't have to get thrift store clothing for work and then have a whole other set of clothing just for after work. I mean, there's ways that you can make it so you can mix and match and carry less with you. That is the goal. Don't forget, if you're possibly going to go on an excavation, carry your excavation tools if needed. However, I've told people to actually set their excavation kit in a box, put it in a cardboard box that's protected, find out how much the shipping is going to cost, and leave that box with the money to ship anywhere in the country with a trusted friend or family member. And that way, if you're in Florida and you get an excavation in Colorado and your stuff is in Minnesota, they can ship it to your hotel and have it waiting there for you, so you don't have to carry it with you all the time. That's going to cost you some money depending on how heavy it is, but we're talking less than $50. And then you'll have it when you need it, and you don't have to carry it around with you at all times. Okay, some other gear. Cooking. If you're in a hotel room, you're going to want to cook, because if you're going to spend a lot of time there, you're not going to eat out all the time. Small town restaurants get old, and maybe they're not even that good. And of course, other food is just junk. So find things that will cook or do more than one thing at a time. I think the field tech's savior right now is the Instant Pot. I mean, you can sear stuff, you can cook rice, you can crock pot, you can cook an amazing meal with 15, 20 minutes of prep and 20 to 30 minutes of cooking at the end of the day with the pressure setting, and they're just amazing. You can get them in smaller ones all the way up to really big ones. I think they have at least 5 or 6 sizes now. So the 6-quart, I want to say, which is probably too big for a field tech, is I think $100, which means all the rest are less. So look for something like that you can pack away and do a lot of things with. Coffee. I mean, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you don't drink coffee. Hotel coffee sucks. Even if they have a great lobby, hotel coffee sucks. So plan and just bring the stuff with you. Get stuff that's, not glass. You can grind your own beans maybe. Do your own stuff. So make sure you got all that covered. Utensils, of course, all the camping supplies are really great for this. They're multi-purpose. They're small. You only need one set of utensils. Don't bring like 5 sets. You're not having a dinner party in your room. Maybe you are, but who knows? You're probably not. But bring stuff that serves multi-purpose and packs down small. Again, the camping section of REI or any big store is really great for that. Jetboil system. Obviously, you don't need something as complicated as this, but a jetboil is a great thing to even bring in the field if fire's not an issue where you're at. I've heated soup up at lunch before at a jetboil while sitting at a prospect pit in Nevada. So, and I also have a French press attachment for mine, that one on the right, so you can make good coffee with it pretty much anywhere. But they're really great for quickly heating water up or quickly heating other food up, and they don't take up a lot of space. And those fuel canisters, I swear, last forever. All right, so lodging. When you're sleeping in hotels or wherever, having a sleeping bag liner is a pretty good deal. Even if you're not in a sleeping bag, if you're in some dirt motel and you're not sure who slept on the sea sheets last or what they did there, these sleeping bag liners are nice and thin, and you can just sleep in it in the sheets. That might be a little too, crazy, conspiracy theorist. I don't know, call it what you will. But they're really comfortable, and I prefer them when I'm in an unknown location. And then if you are in a sleeping bag, you're camping for a project, this will help keep your sleeping bag a lot cleaner because these are easier to wash. You could actually carry a few of these because they pack up real small if you're out for like 10 days straight, and switch it out every 3 or 4 days, and then have something clean to sleep in every once in a while rather than your dirty old sleeping bag. Of course, if you do need a sleeping bag, make sure you get one that goes down to the temperatures where you could possibly be using it. I think you should always buy the one that will satisfy the coldest temperatures you think you'll be in, and that's going to depend on you. Like if it's a 20-degree bag, but you're super cold, in a 20-degree bag at 20 degrees, then you might need a 0-degree bag for 20 degrees. My wife is like that. But for me, like a 30 or 40-degree bag is just fine for those cold weathers because I run a lot hotter. And then when it gets warmer out, I usually just lay it on top of me like a blanket if I even need it. So you don't need multiple sleeping bags, but get the coldest one you'll need and then just unzip it for warmer times, or lay it on top of you for warmer times, or just lay on top of it. And then also, if you're in that sleeping bag liner, you don't sweat when you come in contact with it when it is warmer. So that's also nice. A tent. You're going to need a tent if you're camping. Obviously, you don't need something like this, but I prefer a tent I can stand up in if I'm going to spend a long time in it. We spent over 6 months camping one time for a project on and off, and I prefer to stand up, change your clothes, set a chair in there, set your computer up on a table or tablet and watch a show or a movie you've got saved, something like that. Just the comforts of home. These are little things that will keep you in the field and keep you from getting depressed about, laying down while trying to get dressed and having all your stuff sitting on the floor. Pillows, I always bring pillows with me everywhere I go. I put them on the plane. My wife gets super irritated, but I do it anyway. And if you don't get a good night's sleep, the rest of your day is total junk. And if you're working and you're stressed and you're working long days and you're tired, having your head on your own pillow, a comforting pillow, is just a nice thing to do. They don't take up a lot of space, and they're pretty great. I prefer those really nice gel pillows, but I did find out that if it's less than about 45 degrees, they start turning to rock. So keep that in mind. They just freeze. They freeze in those super cold temperatures, and not only are they really cold, but again, hard as a rock. So don't do that. Now, you can heat up your tent safely. I wouldn't recommend running one of these all night because they do only run for about 6 hours on a bottle, and those can get expensive. So what we do with our buddy heater that we have, and these have tip-over sensors and CO2 sensors, so they'll shut off if they fall over, or they'll shut off if they sense a high CO2 level. But they're designed for tents. So if you have one of these, we usually run it for maybe an hour before we go to bed, just so we can come in and change and get to sleep with it not being super cold. And then I usually get up, well before my wife does, and or if I'm by myself, I'll just roll over and turn it on when my alarm first goes off, and then maybe lay there for another half hour or so, and then get up in a nice warm tent and get dressed. Okay, now let's dive a little deeper into lodging. We're going to talk about staying in hotels, tents, and cars, the 3 things you're more likely to stay in while doing CRM archaeology. All right, so hotel life. I always reorganize the hotel. Sometimes it's just as simple as removing like the tray with the coffee maker on it and the book and the brochures and all that stuff, those little things. I put them all away. Take pictures if you don't remember where they went or it's not obvious, so you can always put that stuff back. But there's usually a desk drawer you can throw that stuff in, and then like in the closet area or where the towels are, or top of the refrigerator, whatever. You could put that other stuff, but make the hotel room your own. Don't take down the artwork. I know somebody that used to get a double and then actually take down one of the beds and lean it up against the wall. She would like completely dismantle it. And then he'd have a place to work out and do other stuff, but he'd have a bigger room to do it in. I wouldn't suggest doing that necessarily, but definitely consider it. And if you do something like that, make sure you ask the hotel staff, and because they're going to come in and clean and say, what the heck happened in here? So you also have to be able to make sure you can put it back together the way that you took it apart. Obviously, if you can secure your own hotel rooms, look for ones on point systems. And not all hotels are on point systems, but one of the nice things about hotels.com is that almost every single hotel you can get through there you can get hotels.com points. So even those crappy little dirt motels, you can book those through hotels.com. And then when you get 10 nights, you get one for free. Now, the way they work that is they take the average of all the nights and the money you spent on those nights for that last 10, and you get that. So if your average ended up being $60, then you get a $60 hotel credit, basically. So if you went and got a $80 hotel, they'd take $60 off the top and you only paid $20. But if you got a hotel that was less than that, I don't think you get the balance. I think you just get the hotel for free. But I'm not actually sure about that because I've always gone higher. So may as well. Well, also, sometimes companies will book the hotel for you. And if they're booking it in a location with an actual point system, like Marriott or something like that, then ask them if you can get the points and then sign up for the program and give them the number. Because a lot of times they don't even get that question and they don't even know how to deal with it. So just see if you can get the points for that hotel room. You're not even paying for it. You might do a 3 or 4 week project and end up with a few free nights at a nice hotel after that. Check the rates on hotels. You can almost always get a AAA discount, even if you don't have AAA. You can get other discounts if you just ask for them. Weekly discounts, monthly discounts. Even if you're, say, working Monday through Friday, getting the weekly 7-day discount might be cheaper than paying individually Monday through Friday. So even if you're not going to stay there for Saturday and Sunday, what's the big deal? You leave your stuff there. So if you know you're coming back, it might be cheaper to get that weekly rate. So for maid service or turn down service, whatever you want to call it, I almost never get it unless it's required. And in some small towns, it is required because they're afraid you're cooking up a meth lab in there or something like that. So they'll want to come in every 3 or 4 days. But I always just clean my own room. Take the trash out, ask them for trash bags, ask them for toilet paper when you need it, ask for clean towels when you need them. Don't just throw your stuff on the ground. The reason for this is you want it to be your home. And the more you think of it as your temporary home, the more you're less likely to be homesick or to think about other things. You just focus on your work, focus on living your life, and you'll be happier for it. All right, so a couple other things on hotels. Room sharing. It's not for me, but it's a great way to possibly get a bigger room. Sometimes when the company is purchasing the hotel, if you say have a spouse or partner that you're thinking about rooming with, see if they'll get you a slightly better room. It's still going to cost them less money to get you guys, say, a king size suite than to get you individually rooms. So if you want to share a room, don't let them take advantage of you by just getting you a regular double room like everybody else is getting. You guys deserve your own rooms. If everybody's getting their own rooms, then say, hey, we want to share a room, but upgrade us to a nicer room, and it's still going to cost you less money. Also, of course, you can just share rooms with others as needed. Other ways to share rooms are, of course, Airbnb. I mean, it's almost everywhere these days, and a lot of times cheaper than a hotel, and you get a lot nicer amenities. Again, it's all about feeling like your home, even if it's not your home. So if you have the ability to cook, you've got a living room, you've got a bedroom, a lot of times you can get these for the same, if not cheaper price than a hotel, and your quality of life is just going to be that much better. VRBO is very similar to Airbnb, but they're more in vacation areas, I've noticed. But you can check both sites and see which one you get. Hostels, again, not for me. They're a little too communal, and you can't leave all your stuff out all the time unless you get a solo room. But from what I understand, that's pretty rare. But it is another option, especially if you're traveling. Maybe you just need to sleep for the night. You might get something for $10, $12. Who knows? Okay, so camping. The number one thing is to be comfortable. Camping can get really uncomfortable after a few days. So if you don't have the right stuff, if you don't have a tent that's comfortable, if you're too cold in your sleeping bag, if you're just miserable at the end of the day, then you're going to hate your life and you're going to do something else. You're going to end up working for Starbucks, and nobody wants that. Think of it as your home away from home. Think of this wherever you're sleeping. I don't care if you're in your car. Think about it as your home away from home. The ability to stand up really does make all the difference for me. It's just one of those little things that you don't even appreciate until you can't do it for weeks on end. Your surroundings can definitely alter your mood. Bring little LED lights and stuff. Make sure you download a bunch of movies on Netflix onto your tablet or something and take that into the field with you so you can just sit there, relax, and have a good time. Bring some books, whatever you got to do. Keep it clean. Keep your stuff off the floor if you can. You can get those collapsible shelves and things that you can bring in and set up a nice little tent situation and just be happy with it. So the final thing is car camping, which some people might see as homelessness, but it can be done in really smooth ways. Again, it's not as bad as it sounds. I've seen so many people with a nice, amazing setup in like a truck or something like that, or even a car, and they're happy with it. But again, it comes down to preparation. So you got to plan for it, just like anything else. This is a little car, looks kind of like a Subaru, and they clearly made this thing and set it up, and they've got storage underneath and sleeping on top. I mean, that's pretty fantastic, and it looks like it's collapsible. And that looks like an airbed too. So a nice thing to get in there and just be comfortable. All right, so jobs. Let's talk about that. We got survey and excavation type jobs. Let's look at survey. So we've got pedestrian survey. We've already talked about this a little bit. We're going to kind of dial into it now. And shovel testing. And so pedestrian survey is basically just walking in the desert. Geologically speaking, places where there's pedestrian survey, it means there's little soil development. So a lot of artifacts are just sitting on the surface. It's what they call a palimpsest of time, which means all these different time periods are basically just squished down on top of each other. So maybe there was no soil development, or maybe there was periods of moisture that washed away all the soil and you're left with artifact and rocks. And it washed away all the light stuff down into the valley. When there was maybe a river or lake environment, say 10,000 years ago, and now you're left with just artifacts all squished together. That's what's called a palimpsest. Shovel testing is done in places where there's heavy soil development or deposition, and almost everything is buried. It doesn't mean there won't be stuff on the surface, but almost everything is buried. And different states will have different ways to do those shovel tests and different intervals at which you will shovel test. But it's basically digging a hole on an interval on a transect, and then collecting the artifacts within those and taking notes, and then deciding where you're going to do a more detailed excavation. Monitoring is another type of project that I put into survey type, really because it's just not excavation, but it's usually a final phase, and it's where you're protecting known sites by just being there, so the bulldozer doesn't get too close, or whatever the vehicles don't get too close. Or you're monitoring in an area that either hasn't been surveyed or is surveyed, and you know there's known sites in the area and there's potentially sites where they're working. You're paying attention to make sure that nothing else is found while they're actually working. And then they can call on you in other areas if something was found. But planning for this from a clothing and gear standpoint means that sometimes you're going to have a long time where you're sitting doing nothing. You're just waiting for the construction crew to do something else. Maybe they're moving equipment. Maybe they're deeper than the known cultural layers before they move on to something else. Who knows? But plan for that. Bring a tablet, bring a book, listen to podcasts, do something. You don't want to get too bored. Monitoring is a great time to get some other work done, but it's also a good time to bone up on your archaeology skills because you're the only person out there. So when something is found, you've got to make the calls. You've got to stop the crews. You've got to possibly even record a site from start to finish while they're waiting there watching you. So it's a job they often send new people out on, but make sure you're prepared when you go because you're the only person that's going to be doing that stuff. So excavation types, usually, and these terminology changes by region, but this is some of the most common terminology that I've seen. So when you go from the shovel testing or survey phase, usually the next one up is phase 2 testing. And that can mean anything from a trench with a backhoe or hand shovel, or close interval shovel testing, or 1x1 test units. It's basically you found some stuff that indicates either on the surface or through some sort of prior excavation that there are possibly things here. So instead of opening up all these block units, you're going to open up systematically these little areas in this one spot that you've identified as potentially culturally significant. Then, of course, if you do find something there, you're going to go straight to phase 3 excavation, or you're going to wait and go there later. Depends on the funding for the client, of course, but phase 3 excavation is typically the full-scale block excavation like you're used to seeing pictures of, and people opening units and basically chasing features and other things to make sure they've got the whole site dialed in. Then, of course, there's lab work, and there can be a field lab if you've got a big project, a long-standing project, or office lab work. So those are tied to excavation. And again, you got to dress appropriately for what you're doing. If you're in the field, but you know you're in the lab, you might not need all the different equipment you would need as a normal field technician working in the field. So if you're going to be stuck in the field lab, make sure you're dressed appropriately and you're comfortable. Okay, so education is the final one. Just keep in mind that you're always learning. It never ends. If you're watching this video right now, which you are, then you already know that. You already know that you're always learning. Some different learning sources. And before I get to that, some learning times. I mean, I try to learn something new every time I'm out in the field, even when I'm home too, but especially when I'm out in the field, because you get out of this routine that you have when you're home. And when you get out in the field, it's nice to say, okay, for this time period, I'm going to go on YouTube or something, and I'm going to learn this. I'm going to just watch some videos and try to understand it, at least have a good understanding. You might not have the equipment. You might not have to be able to do the practical application of it, but at least you can have a fundamental understanding if somebody asks you to help out with it or to learn something else. But some learning sources, of course, Audible for audiobooks is pretty great. If you're really into audiobooks, then Audible's a great thing to have because it just sends you these credits and you can get the books. And usually, if you can listen at work, you might catch up to that. So fill in with podcasts. You can bring actual books, of course. I don't recommend it anymore. I used to travel around with all kinds of books and then pick up more books and then just end up with all these books. But while that's great and we all love books to have on our shelf, when you're stuffing them into your car, it gets to be a problem. So learn how to read on a tablet or your phone and you'll be better for it. YouTube is a great place, of course, to find junk, but also to find good things. And you got to take that for what it is and just look at the sources, look at the comments, and learn something on there. Lynda.com is not a free service, but it is a great place to learn a lot of cool things. And you might even be able to get your company to pay for a subscription for everybody. Check that out. Udemy is another one. They do have some free stuff, but they also have some paid stuff, but just another place to learn some things on. Skillsoft is a great place to just learn skills. If you don't know how to use an electric drill or something like that, you can go learn that over at Skillsoft. There's just like thousands and thousands of little things you can learn, and they have monthly memberships. Code Academy is totally free. If you want to learn a total different skill and side hustle, then go learn how to code. You might even be able to make some apps or do some stuff while you're in the off time that will help you with your work. Or you might be able to freelance once you get better at it and do a little extra work on the side. Khan Academy is also free and helps you brush up on a lot of those educational skills that you might be a little lacking on. The Great Courses is another good one, and again, not free, not super cheap, but they have amazing courses from amazing instructors on individual topics, and you can learn a lot from there. And of course, the Archaeology Podcast Network, we have a lot of great instructional podcasts, educational podcasts, where you can just keep abreast on different things in archaeology and stay engaged with the field. And of course, you're watching this on Team Black. Check out our other resources wherever you found this one. And always feel free to suggest things. You can email me, chris@digtech-llc.com, if there's a course that we're missing and you would like to see it. Okay, so that's it. Again, arccert.black is the website. Check it out. Share this with your friends, colleagues, anybody who you think could benefit from this. And thanks for watching this webinar.